Hey everyone, Mr. Aarons again, back for day 2 of the 5-1 lesson. Today we're going to be talking about comparing fractions. We're going to be using our LCMs from yesterday, adding in an LCD, which we'll learn about here in a second. So let's dive in. All right. Today we are comparing fractions. We're going to use our inequality symbols that we use. Primarily, we're going to use these three: less than, greater than, or equal to. Basically, what we're going to do today is we're going to be given some fractions. We're going to compare them using a number line to start here, and then we're going to use some different things to compare them at the end here. So right away, they want us to compare these two fractions using a number line, 9/11ths and 6/11ths. Right away, I knew that they were both between 0 and 1 because I knew if they were greater than 1, then they would be more than 11 on top. And if they're less than 1 or less than 0, they'd be a negative. So what I did here is I put 11 lines on here. And I'm just going to count off each. I think I actually messed up when I made it. I think I actually put 12 lines. So we're just going to, we'll just scratch out this line right here, pretend that one's not there. All right, so 9/11ths I'm going to put on here start. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is going to be where my 9/11ths is. 6/11ths, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6/11ths. I know that this would be 0/11ths and this would be 11/11ths, which is equal to 1. So right here I can see these two. Right away you probably already could tell even before you put them on the number line which one was bigger, which one was smaller. It was pretty easy because they had the same denominator. We could see that the 9/11ths was larger than the 6/11ths. 9/11ths is greater than 6/11ths. Remember, our greater than moves this way, our less than moves the same way as our L. So 9/11ths is greater than 6/11ths. All right, look at our next one, a little different because we have different denominators now. This one I think we should still be able to solve. I have -1/2 and -1/10. Right away I knew they were between 0 and -1. So what I like to do here is I'm going to have to count backwards instead of forwards. So I split it up into two ways. There's a quick trick that we could do here that we're actually going to talk about later. That's our least common denominator. But I could make this denominator the same as this one by making an equivalent fraction. Watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take this 2 and this 1, and I'm going to times them both by 5. Why am I timesing them by 5? Because I want to make this denominator on bottom to be 10, the same as this side. So I'm going to do that. On top, that leaves us with 5. On bottom, that leaves us with 10. So now we have -5/10 and -1/10. That's going to be a little bit easier to compare. So I noticed that these would be similar. I wanted to make those the same. I knew in order to get this to 10, I multiplied each by 5. All right, now I'm going to jot these on here. We have -1/10 right here. I went back 1, -1/10, -2, -3, -4, -5, -5/10 right here. We got to think about which one is a bigger number, knowing that this way means bigger. Our bigger number is going to be right here. So I can write this as -1/2 is less than -1/10. Great work. Moving on to the next. We have 4/9 and 2/9. They have the same denominator, so all I got to do on my number line here is I got to make 9 marks. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Next step, we're going to jot these on here. I know that each one of these, this is going to be 0/9. This is going to be 9/9. Each one of these is going to be 1 in between. So we got 1/9, 2/9 right here, 3/9, 4/9 right here. We know this way goes bigger, so I can tell you right now, eating that bigger number, 4/9 is going to be bigger than 2/9. All right, one more here. We threw a little negative in there. They still have the same denominator, which is going to be awesome for us. Makes it a little easier. Right here, we have 9 on bottom. What we're going to have to do here is we have a -4/9 and a +2/9. So I split this up from negative to 0, -1 to 0, and then from 0 to 1. And each one of those, I'm going to split up again 9 times. Something like that. Now if I'm going to plot this one first, I know it's going to be between -1 and 0. So I'm going to start at 0, and I'm going to go back because I know this is going to be 0/9. This is going to be negative 9/9, because that's going to be the same as negative 1. This is going to be 9/9. Don't get those confused. This is not negative 1/9. All right, I'm counting backwards. So I'm going to go negative 1/9, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4/9 right here. Counting backwards for those negatives, forwards for those positives, 2/9. We're going to count forwards, 1, 2/9. We know this way it gets bigger. You can already see that one is bigger. Keep that bigger number. Negative 4/9 is less than 2/9. All right, our next method for comparing our fractions here, it's going to be for a little bit more complicated fractions. We were doing some simple ones earlier. We're going to have some tougher ones here. We're going to be using our least common denominator. So right now would be a good time to maybe jot this down in your notes. You can pause it here if you need to. I got our 3 steps right here. Step 1, step 2, step 3 to solving our least common denominator. Basically, this is when fractions have different bottoms. An example of this is right here. We had a 2 on bottom and a 10 on bottom. They're harder to compare. When fractions have different denominators, we like to rewrite them using the same denominators. So if we had, let's say, 2/7 and 1/14, we would want to compare those using the same denominator. It makes it easier to tell. So the first thing to do is find the least common multiple of the denominators. When remembering our denominators is that bottom number. So I'm looking at the least common multiple between 7 and 14. I'm going to start listing them right now. Remember, we have 2 different methods to do this. We can either find that prime factorization or we can list them. For the quickness of this one, I'm going to just list mine off. I got 7, then 14, then 21, 14, 14. Oh, look at that. They already got one in common. So we're going to find the least common multiple. It's 14. Now we're going to rewrite the equivalent fractions using the LCM as the denominator. Well, look, this one already has 14 as the denominator. We just have to change this one. How do we make 7 into a 14? Well, we times it by 2. On top and bottom, this is going to become 4/14. Our last step, we rewrote the fractions using the least common denominator. Compare those fractions. We obviously know 4/14 is going to be bigger than 1/14. Write down those 3 steps right there. Those are going to come in handy for you. Pause right now if you need to. I'm going to try to keep it short today, so I'm going to move on. All right, so now we're going to get some practice with it. They told us we have a math team that won 5 of its 8 competitions. A debate team won 7 of its 10 competitions. Who won more often? Well, they have different denominators, so it's not so easy for us to say. So we are going to follow these steps. Let's do it. Find the LCM of the denominators. That's what we did yesterday. We see our denominator. That's our bottom number. If you don't know that, make sure you write that down. Denominator equals bottom. I'm going to use the prime factorization for these ones, get some practice with that. So I'm looking at the bottom numbers. We've got 8 and 10. This one's going to break down into 4 and 2, and then again into 2 and 2. This one's going to break down into 5 and 2. Okay, so for 8, we've got 2 to the 3rd power, 2 3 times. For 10, we've got 2 times 5. Remember, we're finding the greatest factor of each. For 2, it's going to be our 2 to the 3rd. For 5, we just have that one. So we got 2 to the 3rd times 5. 2 to the 3rd is going to be 8 times 5 equals 40. 40 is going to be our least common multiple. LCM equals 40. Now we're going to write equivalent fractions using the LCM as our denominator. Okay, so I'm going to write these equivalent fractions. I'm going to put 40 on bottom for each. We got 5/8 and 7/10. We got to make them to 40 on each. How do I get from 8 to 40? Multiply that by 5 on top and bottom. How do we get 10 to 40? Multiply by 4 on top and bottom. 5 times 5 is going to be 25 over 40. 7 times 4 is going to be 28 over 40. Right here, go that last step. We're going to compare the two. Right now, it's pretty easy to see that 28 over 40 is going to be bigger than 25 over 40. 25 over 40 is less than 28 over 40. We took those steps there. We found that least common denominator, or least common multiple, and put it in as the denominator. We did that yesterday. We're using it today. Plug that in, and then set those equivalent fractions. We worked on that just before Christmas break. Awesome. All right, moving on to the next one here. We've got 6/7 and 4/5. Our step one is to find out least common multiple of the denominators. So we got 7 and 5. Wow, look at that. They're already prime numbers. Both of them are. So we're just going to have of 7, it's going to be 7. Of 5, it's going to be 5. Easy way to find those. Multiply them together. 35. That's what we're going to use as our denominator. Okay. How do I make this fraction right here into 35 on bottom? 7 times 5, whatever I do to the top, I do to the bottom. 6 times 5 is 30. So this one right here is equal to this. How do I get from 5 to 35? I multiply by 7. On top, that leaves us with 28 over 35. We can see that 30 over 35 is greater than 28 over 35. On to the next one. We've got 3/4 and -3/4 and -7/10. We're looking at those. We're going to find the least common multiple of the denominators. We've got 4 and we got 10. Split this up into 2 and 2. Split this up into 2 and 5. For 4, we got 2 squared. For 10, we've got 2 times 5. This is going to be our biggest for 2. So we got 2 squared. This is going to be our biggest for 5. Multiply those together. 2 squared is 4 times 5 equals 20. 20 is going to be our denominator. Notice how I'm using that LCM to plug that in for the denominator. Okay. Next, we have to set these equal to each other. How do we get from 4 to 20? Times by 5 on top and bottom. That's going to put 15 on top. How do we get from 10 to 20? Multiply by 2. Notice it's different for each. That's going to be 14. Ooh, this one is just a little bit bigger. 15 over 20 is just a little bit bigger than 14 over 20. All right, last one, a little bit of a challenge problem here. We have order, and they give us a bunch of them. -1/2, 3/4, -1, which I'm going to write as -1 over 1, and 2/5. We're going to do the same method here. We're finding the LCM of the denominators. This time we have a lot of them. We've got 2, 4, 1, and 5. It shouldn't be too tough for us. 2 is just going to be 2 and 1. 4 is just going to be 4, or is going to be 2 and 2. 1 is going to just be 1 and 1, and 5 is just going to be 5 and 1. Okay, the ones don't matter. So for 2, we've got 2. For 4, we've got 2 squared. For 1, we've got nothing. For 5, we've got 5. Okay, what's our biggest for 2? 2 squared. What's our biggest for 5? 5. 2 squared times 5, that's going to be 4 times 5 equals 20. We're going to use that as our denominator for all of them. Paying attention to those negatives, though. Some of these are going to be negative. I'm going to put those in right there. This one's negative, and that one's negative. Okay, how do I get from 2 to 20? I multiply by 10. 1 times 10 is 10. Our first one is negative 10 over 20. Our second one, how do we get from 4 to 20? Multiply by 5. It's going to be 15 on top. How do we get from 1 to 20? We multiply by 20. I have negative 20 over 20 here. And how do we get from 5 to 20? Multiply by 4. We're going to have 820. Okay, we have these set up now. We have the same denominator. Now we just got to put them in order. Pay attention to those negatives. Our biggest one here is going to be 15 over 20. Our second biggest is going to be 8 over 20. Our next biggest, we're thinking negatives. So negatives go further this way. Negative 20/20 is going to be the same as -1. And negative 10/20 is going to be the same as -1/2. So our smallest number is negative 20 over 20. Our biggest number is 15 over 20. That's a big example of using those LCMs. Hop into my office hours if you have questions about this. Good luck. Have a great rest of your day.